All right. Welcome to another episode of Before You Kill Yourself with your host, Leo Flowers. I am Leo Flowers. Today, joining me is John Trautman, who is the founder of Real Estate Knowledge Institute. And you're located in Arizona, correct?
Yes, we're in Phoenix, Arizona. Have been. We started here about 5 years ago. Mhm.
And so, one question I like to ask a lot of my guests to start off is, what got you out of bed this morning, John?
Ooh, commitments, man. I have commitments to myself and other people, so that usually starts about 4:30 in the morning. You got to get up. People waiting for you, so got to keep it moving. Commitment.
Are you the
Yeah.
type that like you wake up, coffee and workout, or are you coffee emails? Like, do you have a morning routine? I know you're big on routines and patterns.
Yeah. So every morning's pretty consistent, and people call them habit stacking. But I wake up, between 4 and 4:30 every morning, and then I do a meditation. If I'm good, I could get better at this. I do some journaling, and then off to the gym I go. So try to get there between 5 and 5:15, and then and make that happen. So that's my morning routine. For most days. Yeah.
And that has to be so challenging. I mean, you're a father, and I think you're a newly grandfather, correct?
That is correct. So it's not as hard because I'm not taking kids to school. The youngest is 24, so yeah, they all have their lives outside of here. So yeah, it's routine now. So I've been doing it for so long, it'd be weird not doing it. It's probably harder not getting up and doing those things because then I'm sluggish.
And when you say sluggish, meaning like you just feel like you can't get through the rest of your day, have you noticed a difference in like your mood and behaviors on days where you don't have your morning routine versus days you do?
Absolutely. If I don't do my routine, then my energy's off. Like my focus may be off. It impacts my day in a negative way for sure. Like I'll incorporate like doing Sundays is more like a cold plunge day for me, and I read a book. Sundays is I try to break my patterns or habits, or get out of my comfort zone. I think is probably a better way to phrase it, where let's do something different than I'm used to. Like I delete social media off my phone on Saturday evening, so I'm not even looking at it Sunday. I don't want to. It's a day to recharge, refocus. Meditation that day as well. Maybe I'll do a yoga practice. Definitely doing a cold plunge, something like that to reset yourself. Just try to, there'll be like I pick a book. I'll try to, start to finish, do a book that day. If not, I'll finish it by, early in the week. So those are some other things I try to do. Sunday, I just try to, I try to push myself on that day. Like, let's just say, for example, I used this the other day because it's true. Like you go to the gym all the time, you see the same people, but maybe you've been going for years, and you know how it is with guys. You see each other across the gym, and maybe, there's the energy isn't vibing. You're almost like mean mugging each other to a degree. Like I'll just be like, all right, enough. Like I'm gonna go talk to that person today, just like see what's up. Not in a weird way, but just, hey, like, shit, I've been going to the same gym for X amount of years. Like, break that stuff up, park the ego, go say what's up. So, yeah, whatever it might be, like just stepping back and reflecting and trying to push myself. So that's my Sunday routine for the most part.
I've been I played high school, college football, and I'm in and out the gym. And you're right, there are those people in our lives, whether it's in the gym or at work, where maybe you haven't had any interactions with them or talked to them, but like there's like this tension, some mean mugging, whatever, you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And then you go and talk to them, and then you realize you had it. I realized I had it all wrong in my head. I thought they
Yeah.
were mean mugging. They were being confrontational, and then then you end up being best friends. Is that been your experience typically?
So typically what it is like you end up being cool with that person. You probably know a lot of more people in common. But you know what happens a lot of times is like doors will open. Like they'll know someone who, maybe you were trying to get a deal, for example. It's just weird because when I push myself like in that, in situations like that to just, hey, you should be talking to this person. If I talk to that person, it's usually perfect timing and it ends up opening up a door for me that I've been looking for an answer on, if that makes sense. Like, so that goes into kind of your network, right? Like trying to grow your network. A lot of us are, we get in our habits. We're creatures of habit, right? So I'm always trying to think like, all right, you're you're thinking kind of small minded. This is for myself. Like you need to challenge yourself, get out, meet people. It's easy to be a recluse and kind of just stay in your lane, if you will, but going out, networking, talking to people, pushing that envelope. Usually it's always good stuff comes from it, right? Because you find like that, what is it, the Kevin Bacon 6 degree of separation? It's probably less than that, really, when it comes down to it. The more people you know and that you have a good impact on, or you positive, when opportunities present themselves and you, for example, if you're doing good by somebody or bad, you get a reputation for it, and you did bad by someone, and maybe an opportunity for myself to go buy real estate or something, and someone says, hey, yeah, that person burnt me on a deal, right? That's not going to work well for me, and I can't grow my business if I'm out there ruining my reputation like that. So it's just a matter of just doing good things, pushing yourself, networking, and doing what you say you're going to do. I know I'm kind of long-winded on that, but it all blends together.
No, be long-winded, man. My listeners, we're almost at 300 episodes, and they've heard everything I have to say. So they're excited for a fresh voice on here. And and you're a man of action. Some people talk about how they meditate, journal, blah blah blah. But I saw on your Instagram you recently just got back from a trip in Costa Rica, and you hung out with some, with the locals, and it seemed like a spiritual retreat. Can you tell us about that, and what was the motivation for going on such a trip?
Yeah, so that was life-changing. I think when you're in it and doing it, so I went down there and did plant-based medicine. It's an alternative. It's, lots of other places in the world you're allowed to do it, and in the States it's illegal. I don't know why. It's a beautiful thing, and it's helps people, kind of, as human beings, we have trauma. We we go through traumatic situations, and we hold on to that stuff, whether it's energy blocks, whatever it is. Sometimes we just need that little bit extra boost or a different perspective or help, right? Getting past it. In doing plant-based medicine, I think helps people spiritually. It helps enlighten them, and helps them, maybe purge some stuff that they need to, or just helps them connect to, themselves, the universe, all of it. So it really depends on what you're looking for, and it could help you through those situations. So that was the reason for it. You find a lot of like-minded people down there doing the same thing, which is nice, because you don't want to be doing stuff like that with people that are maybe negative energy. But through that process, it's the reason I did it, was just it's always trying to push myself, become a better human being, look at things from a different perspective, growth, if you will. So the opportunity presented itself, and I was able to afford the time, energy, and effort to go down there and meet some fantastic people that I'll be friends with for a long time to come. And through that, other opportunities to experience and share with other people has come up a lot. Like a lot of people are looking at doing those. You look at people like Tim Ferriss, you look at like Elon Musk, you look at some of the people, Steve Jobs, a lot of people we know have done, some plant-based medicines that it's just not necessarily talked about. But it is growing. It's something that more and more people are talking about and exploring. And, it's it's almost become pretty common in the cities, inner cities, where people go do it. I just wanted to experience in a true, authentic situation. So I went to Costa Rica to do so. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who've gone there, and I've not heard one bad story about Costa Rica. Baltimore, on the other hand, I've heard mixed reviews. But Costa Rica, I've had friends who've moved down there, and they love it. You talked about a way of purging our traumas. Can you give us a bit more detail as to your experience with trauma and what that has looked like for you?
Well, I think we all, like, my trauma compared to a lot of other people's trauma may be minute. You see people on their journeys trying to, figure that out and process it. For myself, it's really no different. We go through and experience, pain, or we say trauma, whatever it is, whether it's stuff growing up or things that we've, done or experienced in our adulthood, stuff that's been done to us, maybe, bad breakups or whatever, right? So we carry this stuff and then we get rigid from it. I think that's all normal, right? It's how we process it and deal with it, that could be unhealthy. We store that stuff in our body, so that could come out in different forms that aren't so healthy, right? Like that negative energy or blockages or whatever it is, could create, just a bad experience. It's bad and hard on your body. So being able to, you know, purge that. When I say purge, I mean just really process it, or give yourself a different perspective of the situation so you can move on from it, right? And I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, if you have this and you go down there, and if that's your intention, I don't know if it's going to work for you or not, but it's definitely going to open up some doors for you and give you different perspectives. I'd be really surprised if it didn't. Everybody that I've talked to, it is it does present to them a different perspective, I guess I would say, and add some enlightenment, if you will. Yeah, I'll stick with the word perspective. I mean, that's ultimately how we process it, right? So in working with people down there, you have shaman that can help you with it as well, in ways that I'm not qualified to even try to describe how it works. But this tribe happens to be a couple thousand years old, and they've been doing it for quite some time, and they're great at it. So it was a beautiful experience, and I think that was my take on it, my experience, and I would say from the 13 other people, that was probably a lot of their takeaways too. Yeah.
Yeah, you're so right when you start off talking about, your trauma might be different than other people's traumas, or it may seem minute, because when we talk about trauma, it is in how we perceive what's happened to us, right? So a breakup for one person might be, not a big deal, but for someone else, it could feel like the end of the world. And so it's
Right.
not so much of what happens to you, but how you perceive what happens to you. You seem to be someone who is like, you have a process, you have a routine, you take time to reflect. Is that something that was ingrained in you from your childhood? Is this something that you saw your father doing, and taking the time out to take care of himself while taking care of the family?
No. No, man, you think about our parents and the way that I think, and I'm generalizing, so, but I just think it's a different generation where they just worked and worked and worked. And, you know, um, my dad worked for the same company for 43 years. So, work ethic is one thing I definitely attribute to, uh, something I got from my dad, is that, and do what you say you're going to do. As far as taking time out for yourself, no, that's something that I'm learning, honestly. it's, you know, I got married really young, 24, maybe 23. I can't remember, 23, 24. She had a couple kids from a previous marriage. They're my kids, Nelson and Olivia. And then we had Josie when I was 24. And, baptism by fire, really, like sink or swim. So at the age of 24, literally, I was raising a family. My mortgage payment on my first house was $24.54. And it seemed like all the money in the world. And really it was. It was the only one working in the family. So there was some stress there, but my point being is I didn't really learn to have time or take time out for myself, and so, once a couple of years ago, I started doing it. I hadn't really read a lot of books in my adulthood, and now I try to get a book in a week. Pretty good about keeping that commitment. Some books are so it takes a little longer, but I'm just trying to be a better version of myself, right? So learn from my mistakes, grow from other people's wisdom and knowledge, surround myself by people that are, smarter than myself and ambitious. So anyways, that's, and noticing through that, a lot of people take time out for themselves. They just don't grind into the ground like I've been used to. So, I'm getting a little older now, so I'm trying to pay attention to father time. So anyways, yeah.
Yeah, 3 kids around the age of 24 definitely sounds like a stressful time. And you have a house payment, mortgage payment of 24. You say 24, 24?
24.54.
24.54.
I don't remember the chain, but I remember the dollar amount.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like your email would be like John Trout at Trautman at 24.54. Like
Exactly.
because I mean I don't know too many people who know the cost of their first house payment, so it definitely had a significance for you.
It was significant for a couple of reasons. That was hard, but I did finance for a car dealership. I was the largest dealership in the state. Washington is where I'm from. So it was the largest dealership, and there was a lot of pressure in that seat. In the car business, it's it's a lot of head games and stuff like that. So, you're 24 in a position really where you're out performing financially most, pretty much everybody in the dealership except the owner, the GM and GSM. So, you're making a lot of money, but you're also, a target for other salespeople, because they want that job. Other people might be mad or jealous. I mean, I think the next closest person after I got in, another friend of mine got in the same position, so we worked together. But yeah, it's a lot of stress and pressure. But they were 10 years older than us, minimum, right? So they didn't like the younger guys coming in and causing waves and taking jobs and stuff like that. So there was that stress, plus the stress of learning a new field. You're not just learning sales, you got to learn finance, you got to learn all the legal. So you're really this key intricate piece to the card business. Finance, you like literally you have to have the banking relationships, and you have to know the legal better than anybody, because you're technically the legal of the dealership anyway. So anyways, you have all that stuff coupled with all this responsibility. I wouldn't change it for anything. It helped make me who I am, because there's days that you want to quit and just say, you just screw it all, tell your boss to go pound sand, or maybe a different choice of words, but you can't, because you got to park that ego. You got to shut your mouth and keep it moving. Like, just, you got kids. Like, I could sleep on a park bench, but the kids can't sleep on a park bench, and I'm not going to put them in that space. So, you literally have to learn to eat crow and just, I'm not saying be a punk or anything like that, but when you want to flex up, you just got to shut up and keep it moving. You see so many people quit even back then, like everybody wants to talk about this generation today, but let's face it, it's always been there. In the car business, I would see people quit, because whatever reason, they would quit and think they were going to go make all this money somewhere else. But really, I'd see them back a year, 2 years later, and I'd look and think, gosh, if they would have just stayed, they'd be making double the money because they would have been promoted, or, customers would have known where they're at. So at some point, you just get a repeat customer base. But when you keep, cutting the tree down, you got to continue, to go plant roots somewhere else. And then you leave again, you're just not letting those roots grow. So by the time I left there, things were really, I chose to leave the car business. I just couldn't do it anymore. I was like, my soul or whatever, but I would have happily made less money just to be happy and out of that business. And I know some people, I was on Brad Lee's Dropping Bombs, and he loves the car business, loves finance. I just thought being in a box doing the same stuff over and over, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I like that, and I appreciate you sharing that story and that sentiment. And being 24 and having 3 kids and thinking about like the future you want your kids to have. And you start off this podcast talking about how your commitments got you out of bed this morning, thinking about your family and the employees and things like that. It sounds like you got that level of commitment from your father, him working 43 years at a job. What are characteristics or values that you picked up from your mom?
It's a great question. It's weird because as a guy, I gravitate towards, my dad's traits and things like that. Some of the stuff that I got from my mom, quite honestly, when I look at it, the gifts that she's given me is to make decisions and to understand the consequences behind those decisions. I would say it's more of to live your life to the fullest and with no regrets, and knowing that if you make X decision, you have a consequence behind it, and that could forever impact your life, and to be careful of those things. Does that make sense? It's about the best I could answer that. I'm sorry.
It sounds like just even thinking about it made you a bit more emotional, or it brought up some memories for you.
Yeah, my mom's a fantastic lady. She is. I think there's patterns that we get from our parents, and we could choose to repeat them or break that cycle. So, some of those things just cross over, and we have to at some point make that decision and take ownership. So, yeah.
And I love that you brought up patterns, because it's true. A lot of things that we do, we tend to think that it's ingrained, it's innate, it's who we are. And then as we start to peel back layers and start to do the self-reflective work, we realize we're just imitating patterns from our parents, or even generational. They talk about generational trauma of patterns that we may not even be aware of if we're not able to trace our lineage backwards. How, right now, how old are you now, John?
47. I'll be 48 in a couple months.
So between the ages of 24 and 47, besides this current trip to Costa Rica and, having your set routines, and like you said, you just kind of started that these past few years, what are some of the intentional steps you've made towards breaking the patterns that you saw, that you felt were not beneficial to you?
Yeah. So a couple of things. I mean, I could reflect back and think of some of these things, right? It's not like, it's like in every section of our lives, we have that opportunity or something presents itself. I feel like a few years ago, well, let me go back even further. Me working for a company for a long time or working for a company in general, I didn't really bounce around. I worked at the car dealership for 8 years. And then I worked for a company called Washington Mutual, or WAMU, as a vice president for them for about the same time until they went out of business. And, you know, at some point it was like, okay, I've really kind of got the work ethic thing down. You know, I've done better financially than my parents, which I would assume they're happy about, but, you know, I'm still not venturing off and doing my own thing. So at that point, it was kind of like go out on a limb, right? And, you know, do your own thing, like really do your own thing. I was always invested in real estate, but I kind of felt like I was teetering, like I had this job security and I had this entrepreneurial mind. So at some point, like severed this piece and just decided, especially after 2008, like I'm not going to be, you know, solely dependent and be heavy on one person's or a company, right, for my income. So I decided at that point I wouldn't be a one-legged stool, you know. So that was maybe a pattern. I think as far as this other piece, you know, I ground for so long, and I say that like, you know, everybody's a couple things here. Like I think of words my parents would say, like, hey, you know, you work too hard, take it easy. You know, why are you always working, right? So if you're listening to that, you're listening to this right now, and that, you know, is something that you hear. I, I, I would say like, no, grind it, do what you do. If you love it, is it really work? I love real estate. I love real estate. And that's what I do. I mean, that's a vehicle, right? So it's a vehicle where I could connect with a lot of people and I have fun doing it, right? So you get to meet with, you know, I get to meet a ton of phenomenal business owners. I get to work with them. I get to help them create space. Homeowners, same thing. I get to help them, you know, with their house, something that they create and create a family in or a home in and all that good stuff. So you get to touch people in different ways. And for me, the real estate vehicle, I love it. So when people are like, hey, you work too much, no, stay in your lane. I'm okay, right? So, but a couple of years ago, I decided, like maybe 3 years ago, I decided, okay, it's probably time to pull the ripcord, right? Like I had some milestones, some markers out there, and decided, okay, like I'm going to hit these markers, and when I do, I'm going to retire. Retire is kind of a loose word. Just won't work like I've been working. And so it kind of gave me a bunch of reflection, made me think about a lot of stuff, and started driving me inward as far as like getting back into like spirituality and just reflection and slowing down and just really looking at like, what are you doing? Like, is what you're doing really your purpose right now? So now I've focused more on balance, right? Like I think there's a balance that you can have. You could have money, you could have spirituality, you could have it both. It's weird because you don't have to just have it all. Like you don't have to be so heavy in one that you can't have any of the other, if that makes sense. That's why the logo, the Buddha and the Monopoly guy. So it's just all about balance, and I love them. So I kind of probably go a little more extreme in them than most, but that's what I do, right? So I don't watch TV. You know, I just try to do stuff to keep my mind healthy, my body healthy, and just keep pushing. So anyways, did I answer the question? Are we guys talking about real estate today? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, this is all real estate because, we're talking about emotional real estate, mental real estate, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
when we know so many people, and I'm sure you've met a lot of people, John, who have acquired some type of financial success, whether it's in real estate or other ventures. And because they didn't tend to their emotional real estate or, their physical real estate, they lost it all. It was taken
Hmm.
away from them. It was all dissolved. And it's seemingly something that took them 10, 20, 30 years to build, gone in one night. And you're right, that the fact that you have Monopoly, which is one of my favorite board games, and mixed in with the Buddha it's a dope logo. And it reminds me of I think it was Socrates, one of those guys who said every man should have a book in one hand and a sword in the other. And to me, that's kind of the monopoly. Like, you got to think business, but you also you can't forget yourself, in the process of your pursuit of whatever you're going after. So no, I appreciate you sharing those sentiments.
Yeah, of course. It's been my truth, and I think you're right on with the fact that a lot of people, lose sight of it. Myself included. I lost sight of it, and it became more about the game, and then yeah, you just end up losing a piece of yourself through the whole thing. So it's like, is it worth it? You know, it depends. Can you pivot? And I know the pivot's a 2020, but I'll go back further than that, because I think of like, all right, well, you could sit there and live in pain and regret, or you can push through it and become a stronger person from your experiences and be able to share those with other people, giving back. Because, I believe, like, when you're going through stuff, it's amazing how people gravitate to you that maybe are a step or two behind you, that you're able to help, for lack of better words, mentor through situations like that. So, there's something to that whole energy thing, that we just attract each other, attract what's needed. Whether we tap into it's a totally different thing.
It sounds like connection is such a huge value for you. You talked about, connecting with people in the gym, connecting with people at work. On this trip to Costa Rica, it was about the relationships you were able to build. Why is connecting and networking and building these relationships so valuable to you?
Well, there's a few different reasons. This is a great question. There's a few different reasons that I could think of just for myself. One that is the obvious, like, doors open up financially, but they also open up in opportunities, right? But I also think, there's things that I can share, and there's things that I could learn from other people. And if I'm not talking to other people, I'm not learning, and I'm not able to share. And part of it is we're here to help each other. So if you, like, for example, if we were just talking about energy and people coming to you and being able to help them through situations, if you're a step or two ahead of them in your process, and that could be for spirituality, that could also be in real estate, right? So being able to help people in any different way. That's the real estate is a vehicle, right? And that's all it is. I still use it to tap in with people and help them. And if people could reach, let's face it, the financial success that people could reach, or nowadays versus, back in the, I don't in the primitive days, we were just basically working on survival. We have the luxury now to, we're in the best times ever. We can tap into more information than ever. It's all on, all on our phones, and basically learn whatever we need to. We could get our information out and touch people like never before. It's just a matter of, are we extracting it? But you have to typically have money to be able to take time to have that freedom and flexibility. and to go drop X amount of money to go to Costa Rica or whatever it is, right? So being able to do that, real estate has been a vehicle that if I could teach people how to do it, then they could have the freedom and flexibility in their schedule to do something similar. And ultimately, the people that I do connect with in real estate are on a similar type of path, whether that's coincidence or not, or I call it energy. But through the networking piece, I don't know, like I just have always been, liked people. I like people. I like talking to people. I'm not, one that's, out at the restaurant, going from table to table, don't get me wrong. But when an opportunity comes up and someone's sitting there, it's not always just coincidental. It's like you start talking to the person and, friendships happen, or, just the networking or just meeting a cool person. I don't know. There's always something good coming from a, solid conversation. So for me, just pushing myself in that direction to have those type of conversations is rewarding to me on a deeper level. Like I get to talk to people typically, and not just a surface necessarily, but you could go a little bit deeper with some people. You could guide people into, like retreats, for example, or you could see where people are stuck in, with real estate, or what their roadblock is, and typically, all these things, we have roadblocks and limiting beliefs in ourselves, and that if I could help with any of those and overcoming them, and I have them myself, we all have them, right? So, my limiting beliefs, if I could network with someone and they could help me through that, great. So I don't say this, I'll leave it at this. I'm a lot happier when I'm connected with people than I'm a recluse sitting by myself. And I'm not saying I love my time by myself. I love my time by myself. But to always be like that, that's not rewarding either. And I don't think it's how we're designed to be. I think we're meant to share experiences. And I'm not saying like you need a broad, need to network with a ton of people or whatever. I do like doing that, but probably go deep with a handful and have just a, solid, rich handful of friends too. I don't have a ton of friends, but the ones I have are solid. So, and I'm doing a lot of talking today.
No, you mean, tying into the Buddha, there's a quote that says, the panda asked the Buddha, was like, what's more important, the destination or the journey? And the Buddha responds, what's most important is who you travel with. And so you're talking about shared experiences. It reminds me of that. But you also brought up, approaching people. We're talking about connections. What do you say when you approach somebody at the gym and you're trying to make friends? I mean, making friends was easy in elementary school. Hey, you want to play? Yeah, sure. What do you say? Hey, you want to lift weights? Like, what are you saying in the gym?
No, man, I don't know. It's like every situation, you got to read it, right? I mean, you got to be able to read people and know if that's the time you should come up, or how do you make that approach, right? So that could be tricky. I like to be a little forward about it. Like, hey, man, I've seen you in here. Like we've been working out here for a long time, just something just forward about it. I'm not trying to be weird about it. Like, especially at the gym, it's not a spot to be weird anyways, but just approaching people and just being like, hey man, you've been coming in here for a long time. Like, I'm just going to come up and introduce myself. I'm John, right? Just forward, whatever, and just read it from there. I don't know. Some people, maybe if you're listening to this and you're not a people person, maybe you shouldn't do it. I don't know. Like, I just like people though. So I'll try to read the situation. I don't know. You're a people person. You get it. The people that, I'm serious, like, I'm not trying to be awkward at the gym. I'm not trying to be awkward at the gym. But in general, I'll try to, like, take the gym out of this equation for a second. If it's just out and about or wherever, just like, how can I connect or talk to this person real quick? Sometimes the conversation takes off, sometimes it doesn't.
I had a friend, he was a car salesman, and I asked him what strategies or tactics he used to build rapport quickly, because it's a small window. and
Hmm.
when you meet someone, and to make them feel like you're a friend or somebody who cares about them and not just there for the transaction. And he told me something I'll always remember. He said, use form, FORM. He said, ask someone about their family, their occupation, their relationships, or recreation. And then M is the message, like whatever you're trying to sell them on. And I always think about that when I talk to people, because I found that it's true when you get somebody to talk about their family, their what they do for work, and what they like to do for fun, then anything else after that is gravy. There's a strong connection there. So I was wondering if you had some type of blueprints, since I know you're into patterns of how you approach people.
Well, usually it's going to lead with, if I see someone they're in construction, I'm going to lead with, something on that. At the gym, it's like, hey man, I expected better results from you. What's going on? No, I'm just kidding. I'm
Right,
just
I
kidding.
seen you in here for
Yeah,
3
yeah,
years.
yeah. When are you going to get serious about actually doing this? Stop playing games.
Yeah, they call it a neg. Yeah, I
Yeah.
read that. Neil Strauss, I'm good friends with him. Um, the you've been married since you're 24. You're 40. You said 48.
Yeah, I'll be 48 this year.
You'll be 48 this year. I would imagine that besides the financial, there's been some challenges, emotional challenges, disagreements. How do you resolve or discuss challenging um, issues that come up? Is there, we're not going to go to bed angry, or we're going to talk to our therapist? What practices have you put in place around that?
So, just around relationships in general, probably the number one thing that I do now versus I didn't do well before, and maybe it comes with age or whatever, is I'm just slower to react. Like I take it in, like I have to look at the layers of what's going on. If someone comes at me, if someone comes at me with something, like what's really going on here, and usually it's an issue with them, not necessarily with me. And vice versa, if something is triggered in me, I have to look at it too, like, all right, what's really going on and why is this bothering me so much? And there's a bigger picture there. So instead of getting triggered, if you will, just taking a step and just looking at it. For me, I would say the single biggest thing that's helped me look at that, if it wasn't for age, because is more about just through meditation, because meditation allows you at time to sit with it for a second and gives you that space, right? So I mean, nowadays it's go 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 go, and so meditation, I think, has become even harder and harder because phones, everything's fighting for our attention. And so our attention span is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, right? So it's harder for us to complete simple tasks. So if we're not combating and trying it by doing some sort of mental exercises, because our brain's a muscle too. So if we're not working it, then we're kind of losing that fight. And in that process, what I've learned for me is being able to sit with it, and just typically stuff that used to bother me just doesn't bother me. And it just, I'm just not triggered by it, because you have to see it like the person that's coming at you with something's, it's their stuff. And if I was to break it down to a very basic, it's like, why would I give that person so much control over my life? Like that person's anger controls me. That's not very healthy to give someone that much control of your life. So I mean, that's maybe a very basic way, but quite frankly, it just doesn't trigger me. If anything, I'll help walk that person through what's going on, and we take a different approach at it. And usually, something else comes from it, right? If they're able to sit with it for a second. So it just depends. I mean, all this stuff is stuff that I've had to go through too. Um, so that's how I recognize it.
Right. And I love how you said, I'll walk them through it. Like is go outside. That's what that sounded like. But I like how you put it, John.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie. 'Cause that stuff. Hey, I'm in construction, and stuff happens
Oh,
sometimes, and yeah, usually we're outside. So yeah, like we're like just pick a tree. What you want me to whip your ass at? No, I'm just kidding.
having built I have two more questions left. Building your business to where you've built it, how have you dealt with failures and setbacks? We were talking about people struggling to deal with breakups, but how do you deal with failures and loss and setback? How do you reframe that?
So okay, so I think this is another really good question. I love that you're pointing this out. For me, like let's just say market turns or whatever it is, right? We could, um, there's a different cycle. Let's just take this for example. The cycle of the market right now, office buildings are vacant, right? People aren't leasing office space like they used to, so everybody's running from it. For me, like I always think, okay, so if that's what's going on, where's the opportunity in this whole thing? So the opportunity could be this. Um, if I feel jammed up emotionally, jammed up in business, and my vision gets very narrow. And when I say narrow, like I'm I'm frustrated. I'm too maybe too hyper focused on the problem to where I'm not seeing where the opportunities are. So if I could take a step back and look at like, all right, for example, this office space, everybody's running from it. There's opportunity. What's the opportunity? The opportunity could be you're going to be able to pick this stuff up cheaper. You're going to be able to work out terms and conditions. You're going to be able to probably get seller financing. But more importantly, like, what if I turned it into multifamily? What if I took that building that no one's looking at the same way and transform it into something totally different? I wouldn't be able to think like that if I was just hyper focused on the problem, right? As a problem, and I get tight chested and I get narrow thoughts and my receptors kind of just all bunch up or cut themselves off. So if I'm able to broaden my thinking and take a deep breaths and focus and then take a step back, it may take a day or two for me to find the opportunity in it. But if I start thinking of like, instead of the problem, like where's the opportunity? Where's the opportunity in this whole thing? Here's a problem, but really where's the opportunity? Because everybody else is probably feeling the same problem in that situation. For me, it's taken me years to kind of step that problem state and look at it like, where's the opportunity here? There's an opportunity, I'm just not seeing it. Like, let's find where that is. Like, show me where it is. And sometimes it shows up in the middle of the night. I'll wake up like, oh my gosh, that's it. Sometimes having a conversation with someone and just mapping stuff out, and then it's like, wow. Sometimes it's a couple steps away from that. But I think the being hyper focused on the problem and not thinking about where's this, like, take a step back, like let go of that. For me, I get a tight chest when I'm thinking about the problem versus like be chill about it and just think about it totally different. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I deal with setbacks and failures. And like, where's the positive part in it? Like, I've had definitely my fair share of failures and then some. So, I also like to focus on the stuff that is working, make that work even better. How could you enhance it and keep that moving? And I know people say if it's not broke, don't fix it. But also it's like, who moved my cheese, right? So at some point, if you're not, constantly refining and trying to improve, then someone else is going to come, steal your lunch at some point.
Well, I love that you mentioned, when you feel like you have a tight chest, it's a sign for you that your vision is narrow and that you're not zoomed out enough, and you're not seeing this from an objective enough a view. And because that's important, because I think a lot of times we don't recognize when our body is signaling to us where we're at mentally or emotionally, right? Where somebody
Right.
might go, oh, I have a tight chest, let me go take a Tylenol or Advil. Where for you, you recognize the tight chest as a signal that you need to sit with it, go for a walk, take a break, maybe talk to some other people about it, and get some air, get some out. What did my buddy call it from Succession? He said, "I'm gonna get some altitude." He said, "Get some
Mm.
altitude on it." Are there other body signals that kind of let you know where you are at mentally?
I would say that's probably, you know, the main one right there. Yeah, because I feel it in my chest. It depends on the situation, whether, what you're dealing with, whether you feel it in your head or stomach or whatever, right? That's goes back to that energy and patterns that we feel in different situations. For me, though, in business, or if I'm just constricted in the way that I'm thinking, I just notice like I just get tight in the chest, and this, at that point, I'm like, okay, whoa, what are you doing, John? Like, you, you caught yourself. You were way down in the weeds on that whole thing. Like, take a step, like you said, get some altitude.
I love it. And then last question, or actually last two questions. One is Real Estate Knowledge Institute. Please tell us about that and how people can associate themselves with you.
Yeah. So it real quick, I'll tell you how it started. Right. So, people used to come to me right after 2008. I was doing fairly good at real estate. We started buying houses in Detroit, and then started buying here in Phoenix. And then people would ask me all the time, like, help me get going in real estate, help me get going in real estate. So at some point, I noticed what did and didn't work. What didn't work was, you know, you know, having people drink from a fire hose on, everything they should do in 2 or 3 days. So I quickly learned, like, know, you want to try to teach them everything you can about what you're expert in, or what your expertise is, in a short period of time, because they're not going to do it, and it's going to be embarrassing for them. And so then there's a disconnect. So what we decided to do is we decided to spread out all these different tasks over, could take someone a half a year to go through everything, but that could be multiple times that they're doing flips. But so anyways, long and short of it, we stumbled onto it. It wasn't like we searched out and said, I want to start teaching real estate. It was people were coming to us, and they were starting to come to us even faster. So we started working with other investors that were maybe more strategic in different spots than myself. Like, my weak spots is what I tried to have everybody else around me do. Even my strengths, like, hey, like, bring someone even better than me at it, right? But like, I'm trying to orchestrate the entire thing. There's not when we were doing this, I was like, I don't want it to be associated with my name. I don't need it to be John Trautman or anything like that. It needs to be about a group, and so we call them team members. So there's other team members that are much more successful than me at their craft, if you will. Some of them are well known, very well known, and some of them you wouldn't know, but are crazy wealthy because they just they don't put their stuff out there, right? Or I should say crazy successful. So in that whole thing, we decided not just to focus on fix and flips, or not just wholesale. We focus in on, various parts of commercial, like, could be warehouses, it could be, so our spectrum is much wider than a lot of other people's out there. And I think a lot of companies look for, like, what could we get away with, the minimum where in giving and fulfillment. I'm always trying to think, like, what could we give to them in addition to, because they're tools for them to go out and make money. And so we're launching one, like, for example, and we'll put the industry on its head, and I don't mind talking about it right now, but so, you have the industry super tight on, and so investors aren't necessarily sure, they get, like, on wholesale residential deals, right? They're not sure where to take those deals. So what we've done is we've created a conduit, or a place where people could go plug in, a house that they wouldn't be able to buy, fix and flip, because there's not enough money in it, where we're now selling to basically the secondary market, or investors that pay a premium for those properties. So, you know, you find certain criteria you could plug into our system and then go make money. This is just one example of what we're always trying to push for and help the investor to kind of, you know, not kind of, but to help them make money. The markets, it has cycles, and through the cycles come opportunities. So if we could help during those cycles, because we can, because we're in it. So it's like what we're doing, we teach people. It's not just like, hey, here's fix and flip, that's all you're going to do. No, it's like got cycles. So also like office buildings down, so let's teach people how to pick that up, or warehouses, or, you know, retail, whatever it is. Like, let's look at your market, figure out what the opportunities are, and go after it. So that's the stuff that we do. So Real Estate Knowledge Institute came from more about like a community. You know, could I have come up with a better name? Probably. But at the time I was just like, well, we need what do we call it? The team of investors. I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's a team of investors that make up a community, and everybody has access to talk to everybody. If someone wants to talk to me, they could talk to me. I'm not trying to build something where you know, people are in verticals they can't communicate. It's important to me that there's transparency there and that people can talk to each other.
I love that, and I appreciate you sharing that. And then last question, and ask this of all my guests, is always imagine there's one person listening in who may be on the precipice of wanting to end their life. Before you kill yourself, what would you say to them, John?
How come I didn't know that you did this? Whew. I didn't know that. So it's kind of crazy because it's, other than the cliche thing, it's not worth it. Whatever you're going through is temporary. Whatever you're going through, I believe, is what is to make you stronger, and it will make you stronger. And it may not seem like it at the time. You know, in 2008, we saw so many people, when the market collapsed, they lost their wealth. You talked about people that built it for 20, 30 years, and they lost it overnight. You saw people take their lives because of it. And it's temporary. Money, all that stuff is like, it's not ours anyways. It's just borrowed, right? If you built it, you did it once, you'll do it again. It's really easier the second time. But that's just on the money part. The pain, the suffering, all the stuff that we go through as humans, I sincerely believe it's a gift that's being given to us to work through so we could help others. We have to see it that way. That's the reality. It's our duties to push through that and go help the next person behind us, the next 3 people behind us. In the middle of it, like, you need to reach out to somebody, you know, you need to get help, you know, do whatever it takes, like call. You got to get out of that funk though, but you got to do something. I would say the stuff that, the routines that I've created, I didn't create them, created for myself. And my habits are the things that have kept me mentally strong from, you know, going down dark avenues, right? We all have those demons, but it's what we do on our daily basis. So meditation, is it good for us? I think so. Cold water plunges, yes. Reading books, yes. You know, doing some exploratory things to help us mentally, yes. The pain that we go through, you know, I used to think like, oh my gosh, this pain that I'm going through, like, how could this be like, it seems like it's going forever, right? Like, you just, when's the end of this thing? But I think as you have faith and you push through that, everything starts to unfold the way that it's supposed to. We're all, you know, how's a diamond created? through pressure, right? Through that pressure creates the diamond. I also have other beliefs in what happens to us if we end our lives, and when we shouldn't. I think that that's just a dark spot that we have to come back and we have to live all that stuff again. So why do that? Why put yourself through it if you know you got to go through it again? But your lineage, you talked about that. The stuff that we put on our family when we do that it's not fair either. Like that's an imprint left on our lineage. So we can't. It's our duty to be strong and push through. Touch it, getting, finding faith, Jesus, some religion, spirituality, whatever you want, but finding a deeper purpose, I think would be, one thing to start with. But finding a support group, reaching out for help. I know I'm super long-winded, but this is something I share this often. I don't know if you could read that.
If it says, if you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you are living in the future. If you are at peace, you are living in the present. Lao Tzu.
I believe that because, like, as we're talking, let's just say I'm down and out right now. I'm depressed. Well, that's because my thoughts are somewhere else. They're back there. I'm talking to you. We're having a good time right now. We're having a real conversation. This is good, solid, right? No matter what, like, I'm okay. Right? I'm okay. You're okay. Like, so there's nothing for us to go and explore. So just stay in the moment, right? It's what like meditation could do for people, is help them stay in the moment, right? There's lots of good apps out there. There's Sam Harris, Waking Up. There's Calm. There's all sorts of phenomenal apps. There's free apps, free stuff all over YouTube. It may seem super minor, starting with some of this stuff, but it's no different. You go into the gym and you start with 10-pound weights. You start doing this little stuff. Pretty soon, you're doing 50 pounds. It's no different than up here. Like, it may start really small. Like I thought for a long time, like, what am I doing this meditation for? Like, this isn't working until I noticed it working, right? It's just one of those things. It's hard to quantify, because when we look at our skeletal, like, okay, this is working. But mentally, it's like all of a sudden things start to shift. You may not see it shifting, but it starts to shift. And so, it's been a huge impact on me. It's, I share the gift of, apps and breath work and all that stuff on my Instagram. Some people might think, what is this guy? He's like real estate. Is he real estate, or is he into this, spiritual and breath work and meditation? Yeah. In fact, as everybody that comes into our classes, there's typically something that's kind of holding us back. So I give everybody a complimentary session on personal development, and I have a company come and do it. They do it with these guys. So I think it's important, because we have to understand ourselves. Like, there's limitations we put on ourselves. So if we're not identifying that stuff, we probably won't see the success that we want to see anyways, because we haven't identified, some of those issues. So if we're tackling this piece and we're giving you the knowledge and we're holding you accountable and walking you through, we'll see a higher likelihood of success in you than if we just used a one-prong approach, like, here's the information. And that doesn't really work either. Like, I have a book. Go read the book if you want to do it. Like, but there's something about us interacting, and like, hey, if I'm coming to you for advice, or you're working with me, and then every week I'm supposed to be doing something, I know I'm accountable to you, and you gave me a task, I'm not going to want to show up and waste your time and my time, especially if I'm paying you, right? So I'm going to be like, okay, I have work to do. I better get this done before our meeting again next, Monday at 2:00. I better be on my game, or whatever, So it's a combination of those things. But I know I'm way off on the topic. You caught me off guard on that one.
No, and I appreciate you being so passionate about your response, and the listeners appreciate it too. We all do, because it's right. It's not about having a one-pronged approach. It's about a multi-pronged approach. It's not just about having a therapist. It's like, I have a therapist, I have a masseuse, I have an acupuncturist, I have a guitar teacher. I have a whole team dedicated to my wellness and thriving and growth. And because you can't do it by yourself, and it does take a strong network. It takes time to build that network, right? Like, sometimes you find a therapist and you don't mesh well. I've had like 6 therapists, and now I find like finally someone that I'm like, wow, she actually listens and I feel heard and I feel safe enough to share. So it takes time to build a team, and you might have to fire some people, let some people go. Some people might fire you or whatever, but the intention is there to build a team, a tribe, a community, so that you can continue to thrive and serve a bigger purpose. John,
Exactly.
thank you so much for taking this time out. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Remember, this podcast is not a substitute for you going to get help, for you going to build your team, for you calling the 1-800-SUICIDE or 1-800-273-TALK or any of the other numbers listed in every single show notes. If you're in Sri Lanka, if you're in Canada, if you're in Budapest, there is a phone number, there is a chat, there's a group, there's someone ready and willing to listen to you right now and to be a part of your mental health team. You can always go to thrivewithleo.com for one-on-one coaching with yours truly. Let's get to tomorrow together. Thanks a lot, John.
Thank you, Leo. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.